Hey guys, welcome to the huddle. We are getting the inflation numbers coming out right now. Dan just had on. What are you watching, Dan? CNBC?
Looks like, yeah, I just had CNBC on. It looks like it came in at 2.4%, which is what they expected. Still above the 2% target, but down from 2.5. It looks like inside the numbers, it's a little bit higher than that because they take out some volatile segments, but it's not getting worse, which is good news. And if we were not at war in Iran, people would probably be saying, okay, it's not getting worse. But of course,
but wait,
Iran, so.
I was going to say, does this capture data from before?
No, it's rear view mirror. So, I mean, there's also people who just say you kind of have to throw it out the window because the world has changed since the end of February. So, but I'm sure if you're the White House, it's good news, because if there was bad news like the unemployment number, that would just be not a good day for them. But speaking of bad, by the way, people, I'm just going to stop Rachel here. It's been quite a morning. Rachel lost power 20 minutes ago. So if you see buckets of sweat coming down her face, no, I'm just joking. She was like, I got it. And Ashley said, I'll just run the whole thing because I got pink on. And Ashley, what happens on Wednesday?
We wear pink on Wednesdays. It's fine. Bring a couple kids to help co-host. It's totally fine.
It's great. No, I was going to say, I mean, guys, by the way, Ashley Hayek here from America First Policy Institute. She's going to be joining us the rest of the week with Sean traveling. But yeah, I mean, I told Dan just a few moments ago that if this would have happened 2 months ago, like losing power 30 minutes before a show, I would be totally having a meltdown right now. And I'm like, it's fine, whatever, we'll figure it out as we go. But yeah, we have Dan still on the West Coast, Ashley in today, me losing power. I mean, it's going to be a fun show, guys. We're gonna figure it out as we go. And as Ashley said, it's Wednesday, so what is it? On Wednesday we wear pink.
We wear pink.
Reference to what movie, Ashley?
Mean Girls.
Very good. Very good.
I'm a little nervous right now.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to talk today about the Strait of Hormuz and what's going on there. Not just what does it mean for the oil prices in the market, but the messaging that is coming out of this administration. We'll talk about the U.S. and Israel when it seems increasingly we might not be on the same page in terms of endgame. What happens if Bibi wants something different than President Trump on this? We'll talk about the White House's midterm plan, this notion that the White House does not want people talking about mass deportation anymore. Stop talking about it. That was a scoop from Axios yesterday, one of the messages that came out of the GOP conference meeting when they were meeting with lawmakers down in Florida. We'll talk about the president's trip to Ohio and Kentucky. Can he pivot back to affordability issues? But then again, maybe he doesn't fully want to because he's going to be in Massie's district, which means time for revenge.
Thomas Massie. Yep.
Yes, Thomas Massie wants to take that guy out. For sure. We'll talk about that as well. Just a quick note on the day book. We have the consumer price index just coming out here. By the way, Ashley, any reaction to that? I mean, it seems like not good news, but not necessarily bad news for the White House.
I think it's fine. And I think the comment on the jobs report, it was interesting because there was actually an increase in American jobs in that jobs report that was not really covered by a lot of media outlets. And based on our data, it was most of the jobs that were lost were foreign-born jobs, but Americans actually had an increase in jobs. So I think it depends on how you look at it. We do a lot of our own budget analysis and our own data modeling. And so I'm interested to kind of dig into this a little bit more too, to see what we can find.
I was going to say, maybe we return to it a little bit tomorrow too, after you've done some of that. 2:30, the president, again, heading to Ohio, where he's going to be visiting a pharmaceutical firm. We are expecting a lot of talk about Trump RX, which strategists for the White House say is one of their best achievements, right? This notion of bringing down the cost of drugs. Again, the question being will that stick, or is everybody just focused on Iran? At 3:05.
Well, don't forget, there's a huge Senate race in Ohio where it's right. Sherrod Brown, the former senator, is running against what's his name, the Republican that just came in. Yeah, and it's a neck and neck race. I mean, this is a big state. It's a great place to deliver this message.
We haven't talked about Ohio enough. We should talk about Ohio more. I'm from Ohio, and that is going to be an interesting race. 3:05, the president's going to be doing a local TV interview. 4 o'clock, he has a podcast interview. And 4:25, he's going to Kentucky, where he will be appearing with Massie's opponent. And again,
all right, wait a sec, guys. Tonight, if you turn on cable news, which is going to get more coverage? Massie's district speech or the prepared remarks at the pharmaceutical plant? Ashley, which one do you think is likely to be in the headlines tonight?
I'll say Massie.
Yeah. 100%.
Definitely.
I mean, just knowing the media and again, they prefer
and the hatred for Massie.
Yeah, I mean, they're very passionate about him. But yeah, put a pin in that. We will return. Totally agree with you. Great question, Dan. It's going to all be about Massie, which doesn't serve the White House per se when it comes to the affordability issue.
Maybe.
Maybe it does. You're right, because they got to get this guy out. They got to make an example of him. Let's do a quick word from our sponsors. I'll go first with Cozy Earth. So last night, for the first time, I was like, it was like hot in my house. Okay. So like, it was 70 degrees, I think 75 degrees here in Washington at one point yesterday. Obviously don't have air on or anything like that. And so by the time we go to bed, it's super hot. And I didn't have my Cozy Earth sheets on, and I was wishing I did. Guys, those sheets are phenomenal. They're cool to touch, super silky, just amazingly soft. The word I just keep coming back to is like butter. I just love them. But I had the linen on last night, which was a big mistake. Definitely wishing I had them. Everybody should go to CozyEarth.com. Check out their sheets. They're amazing. They've got great clothing, amazing smelling candles, the bubble cuddle blanket. Obviously, we've been talking and raving about that here on the show for months now. It's time to put that away, though, because it's starting to warm up. I think today we're going to be 80 degrees again. And again, make sure you get those sheets. They're fantastic. Go to CozyEarth.com. Use our code HUDDLE for 20% off. Thanks to Cozy Earth.
All right. Well, we also are sponsored by CB Distillery. And as Rachel has said in the past, what if your New Year's resolution was to get better sleep? I don't know about you, Ashley, with a bunch of kids. I definitely am always trying to get a little bit of extra sleep and better quality, more important than anything. It makes you better handling stress. You're pretty much better all day. And that's why a great way to start 2026 is with CB Distillery. Over 90% of their customers say they sleep better when they use the product. It helps with mood. It helps with pain after workouts. I definitely, as I'm getting older, have aches and pains, particularly as I was getting ready for the marathon. And so CB Distillery can help with that. I mentioned this. A lot of people I know who do train for marathons use this to help them with recovery and with sleep. All their products are third-party tested. They're free of artificial dyes. Forget cereals and other things. And so go to cbdistillery.com, use our code HUDDLE, and not 20% off, 25% off. Again, cbdistillery.com, code HUDDLE for 25% off.
Thanks to both of our sponsors. Okay, let's dig in. We are going to start with Strait Mess. Good subtitle today, Dan. Really like that. So the White House, yeah, they've got trouble when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz here. I mean, the whole world does. There was this roller coaster yesterday when it came to oil prices and what's going on. The U.S. struck 16 Iran mine-laying vessels. This was just last night or overnight. There are concerns about Iran trying to choke off the world's access to oil, obviously. And at the same time, Energy Secretary Chris Wright, he wrongfully posted on X that the U.S. had successfully escorted an oil tanker through the strait. That ended up not being true. The White House said that was not correct. He ended up deleting the tweet. And this sent sort of markets just like totally spiraling. And then just a few hours ago, CNBC is reporting now that 3 vessels off the coast of Iran's coast have been struck by projectile missiles. This, again, just going to continue to raise concerns there. So we've got a few angles on this. One is the messaging here with what happened with Chris Wright's tweet, but also the problem itself. And I think we should start there because obviously oil price is a huge part of what the president's messaging has been for the midterms, Ashley. How big of a concern is this to them, and what is the plan going forward to make sure that they can clear the strait? Like, are they going to be taking it over to make sure that vessels can go through? What do they need to do to sort of get things back on track on that?
First of all, this is an incredibly dynamic situation, and we have the most transparent president. The number of press briefings, the number of Truth Social posts, the number of information that's coming out is remarkable. That being said, we have demonstrated complete air superiority over Iran. That is very clear, given that we are managing the airspace. The problem that we're seeing right now is, with all great plans, the enemy always gets a say, is what my husband likes to say. And we're seeing that right now. Iran is fighting off its back foot. The president actually took out, it was 10 mine layer vessels. This is where we have to have the political will to complete the job. And this is why the president has made it such a priority to have the greatest naval ships in the world. And so I think right now you have a country, a very rogue group, terrorists that are trying to hold the global economy hostage. And so we have to make sure we have and they're going to do everything possible to try and make this as volatile as possible. And so this is where it's going to be imperative for the president. Like he said, he's going to make it hurt like never before. He's going to bring down pain like never before. And in order to finish the job, that's exactly what has to be done. And I think that we'll see things shift. I really look towards Pete Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth, for his messaging as this is a war operation or a military operation. I look at Caroline Leavitt and her comments yesterday in the press briefing, making the objectives very clear. And I think we'll continue to get updates as the operation continues.
Dan, you've been talking a lot about the messaging coming out of this administration and that it's not been consistent. I mean, there's been a lot of reporting that hasn't been consistent. This area in particular, when it comes to oil and what happened yesterday, there were a couple of things, right? There was the Chris Wright tweet about something happening that didn't happen. The president at one point suggested that there were none of these, there wasn't a problem with the mining in the Strait, and then said a few hours later or a few minutes later that actually we just took out a bunch of those. So like, you're laughing. It is a serious matter, but I mean, like, what are the American people supposed to sort of take away from this? Like, how do they figure out what is happening and what is not when like there's so much inconsistency here?
Yeah, I think, look, in fairness to Trump, I think one of his strengths is that he can dominate news cycles, he can move news cycles, and he can kind of try to get on a front foot better than anybody else. And 99% of the time in his life in public office, he has been successful. I think the problem here is, and Ashley kind of alluded to the kind of how dynamic the situation is, and the old expression, the fog of war. Events are moving so fast that as he is trying, and they are trying to shift narratives. So Chris Wright saying, hey, the ship, we just escorted a ship through. I think oil dropped $25 a barrel within like minutes of that tweet. Caroline Leavitt then comes out, has to say, actually, that's not true. It's deleted. Go back to Monday night when Trump kind of threw the chum in the water that this may be over very soon. Markets started moving. Then Hegseth came out and is like, basically we're just getting started. And so I think that they are trying to find a way for something to stick, to give people confidence that like the market, oil should calm down. This is not going to last forever. Like this isn't a forever war. But right. Then events happen and there's contradictory messages because there's so many other players involved. There is the Defense Department. There are the British commenting. There's the Arabs commenting. There's what the Iranians and the Israelis say. And so we don't control everything. And I think that is their problem, that every single day, I think they have a message of the day to try to like flip the script. And it might even just be in Trump's head. And then something else happens and they're scrambling on a back foot. And the danger is the public that doesn't sit on X all day, listen to cable all day, that some of these contradictory messages penetrate. And then they start losing trust in the commander in chief of like, what are we doing? And that, I think, is what the White House just has to be careful for. Not pundits, not Democrats, people on MS Now, but the average person who kind of tunes in and tunes out for 5 minutes a day, who's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, it is war, so it's hard. Like everything is changing so
Totally.
Rapidly. So you would think the public would maybe give them, some grace on this. And by the way,
the one difference is it's a war of choice, and that is where people will say it's not like we were attacked. And as you say, it's a fog of war. You proactively launched this. So were you prepared for the Straits? Were you prepared for oil prices to go up? Because it sure feels like, and all this reporting is, they weren't. that they're surprised.
I would say, they've said there's been information that, so I don't think we ever want to be in a situation where we're sitting ducks and we're waiting, like, well, there might be an attack on us. They have said, like, there was intelligence that said that we could have been, or we were going to be the target of attacks. And so we were proactive. In fact, I don't think the mission was supposed to happen as soon as it did. The other thing is we are only 10 or 11 days into this thing. The president said it would be 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, we're still on the early side of this. And the last thing I'll say is, to your point, like the propaganda machine, as I think, the press office might refer to it as from time to time, is if you look at the headlines, there's no mention of the 5,000 targets that were taken out. There's no mention of all the accomplishments that are being done. You're hearing Iranian propaganda. You're not hearing the wins of the administration. This is not like your World War II good feeling, like, let's cheer for America. This is really, the press is coming down hard on the president. So you're not just fighting back against, trying to get the truth out, but you're also trying to fight against the media that doesn't want to report the good things that are actually happening.
Speaking of things that are getting drowned out, there's news this morning that there's a new oil refinery in Texas, first time in 50 years that we're going to be opening a new one. Good news for the White House. Also, an impending Chevron and Shell deal with Venezuela. This is something the president was talking about earlier this year. There was some skepticism that these companies would really go in. This is, again, pretty good news for this administration, probably going to get drowned out. But you mentioned this is early, Ashley. There was some reporting in Politico overnight that is pretty interesting. It says the White House feels like in 3 or 4 weeks, oil prices are going to be basically back to where they were. Now, this could be sort of positive spin to sort of quiet down the concerns we have seen. But they feel like since oil prices dropped to $80 a barrel yesterday, when they had spiked at 120 over the weekend, they feel like things are going to be coming down rapidly. They're saying November is a really long time from now, so maybe it will not impact the midterms. What do you think? Like Sean has said, like if gas prices are still this high by Memorial Day, the party's in real trouble. What, in your view, what is the political timeline on this? Like, at what point do the gas prices really need to be back to where they were in order for the White House to not, and the party not to take a hit from this?
Yeah, I would say like it's got to be kind of a whole package. It needs to be gas prices. It needs to be cost of living. It needs to be your cost of eggs, your cost of groceries. I think it's going to be a lot of things. I think right now, again, the press is focusing on one component because that's what is not maybe doing the best. I think we have a little bit longer. I think most people don't really tune in until the fall. I'm of the mindset it's great to start messaging early. The earlier, the better. But I think we have a little bit of time, and things are already starting to get, I think they're starting to get better. Like things are starting to feel better, and it's not nearly as bad as what it was 2 years ago in a lot of regard. It's a lot of reminding, kind of not to jump ahead way too far ahead, but reminding people the difference between what was and what is, and what was common sense and what was not so common sense at all and kind of ridiculous. So it's going to be a bigger package.
Dan, do you think that's wishful thinking? Do you think that?
Yeah, no, look, I actually don't. I mean, I do believe two things are true, which is one, to Ashley's point, I think the media is just skeptical of all of this, and a lot of them hate Trump. And so there is more coverage of the chaos than of the successes. I do agree with her on that. I also do agree that if in a month oil prices are back down as we enter the summer driving season, people will be frustrated. People will have said, like, jeepers. But if there is a sense of the world's a better place, we have accomplished our goals, then, I think there will be some grace. The problem is we don't really fully know if we're going to, what those goals are. And I do think, I mentioned this on Monday, the ripple effect worries is what would cause me heartburn at the White House, which is that if this goes on another month and businesses have to pass on these costs of energy increases, whether it's airlines or you make a widget in a factory and the cost of running the factory has gone up. Once inflation enters the bloodstream, it's very hard to get inflation to come back out of the bloodstream, as the Biden people would tell you, because their famous line was, it's transitory, right? Well, it was for a year, but that year was pretty damn painful. So that's what would worry me, is just, can you keep it out of the bloodstream?
We're going to move on to our next topic, which is the U.S. and Israel. But first, I actually want to pull up this poly market because we talked yesterday quite a bit about Vance and Rubio and 2028 prospects here. So there's this poly market here. I have to make this bigger on my screen because I cannot read.
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting is Marco Rubio yesterday, for those who didn't see it, kind of laid out this, hey, I want to be really clear. There's only three, here are our progress on the three goals. And it was getting rid of their ballistic missile system and offensive weapons and the Navy. What he did not mention was nuclear and getting rid of their nuclear stockpile, which we talked about yesterday. Hegseth kind of omitted that as well. And I think that's an interesting shift that they are starting to take, trying to figure out how can we define victory where we are successful and get out. And so the fact that Rubio is out there working with Hegseth, and we talked about JD Vance, look at these numbers narrowing in terms of, we go back to the beginning of the year, people thought Vance was 95%. Not anymore.
Yeah, you can see that spike there with Marco Rubio and his numbers just going way up. I mean, it's early, right? It's super early on this. Ashley, thoughts on this chart? 21% think it's going to be JD Vance. I'm sorry, not 21%. People think JD Vance has a 21% chance of being the next president. Gavin Newsom, 17%. Marco Rubio, 14%. AOC, 5%. 6%, yeah, rounding up. Math,
give her the extra point.
Who is there a name that's not on here that you would think should be?
No, I think this is right. I mean, obviously the American people or the poly market doesn't think Kamala Harris is going to be there, which is kind of interesting given the conversation we had yesterday. And that AOC has a better opportunity than Kamala Harris is very interesting. So I'm actually really curious how that dynamic's going to go. I look at this as like a total win for the Republican Party because JD Vance he has an incredible story. Ohio, pulled himself up from his bootstraps, highly successful, great family man. And then you have Marco Rubio, Cuban American. I mean, you have great stories. And I look at the left, I'm like, oof, good luck, guys. So I feel really good looking at this chart, to be honest with you. So.
All right, guys, let's move on to U.S. and Israel. So new Wall Street Journal story headline says, Trump says the Iran war is nearly won, but Israel has other ideas. Ashley, you said this sort of yesterday. We here in the U.S., we have to be looking out for our own interests, not Israel's. But Netanyahu, he's got this relationship with the president that is sort of like, it's unlike any other foreign leader, right? Like they're friends, they're close. Yes, they fight sometimes and they disagree. But the president has been in his corner over and over again. I mean, what is the president going to do if he's ready to end this war and he feels like they've accomplished what they need, but Israel is making the case that, like, listen, if we don't continue, we could, like, our country may not exist in a few decades. Like, we have to finish this.
America and Israel have very different objectives. And the president has been crystal clear that this is for, his administration is for America first and always America first. And Israel has been on a war footing since October 6th. They've been in this. They are right next to him. They have different objectives than America has in this. And so I don't think that it has to be lockstep. I don't think it will be lockstep. I'm very confident that the president is going to do what is best for the American people first, because again, like, our objectives are just not the same. We have a whole ocean that divides us. They're neighbors, and they've been under attack for forever. They've been taking missiles for forever. So we're not going to have the same objective, and I think that's okay, and I think the president will do what was best for our country.
Dan, you've said this, that, like, this is Israel's big moment, right? Like, they will never have a president who is as close and sympathetic to what they're going through as they do right now. And so for Netanyahu, like, this is it. Like, this is the moment. And not only that, but, like, if you go back to a couple of weeks ago, remember there's that brouhaha about, there was that clip of Marco Rubio on Capitol Hill where he suggested, and I know the White House has walked this back, but he suggested that one of the reasons we had to act now was because Israel was going to act regardless, and we were going to face blowback. So, like, even if there is a diverging path, like, we're still so connected because of our assets in the region, because of, our interests are very similar, although they are different, like you're saying, Ashley. Like, Do you think that we can disentangle that easily, Dan, or is this does it feel more complicated to you?
I think it feels very complicated because you have to add the fact that Netanyahu maybe understands American politics better than any politician outside of Donald Trump in the world. I mean, they've got media relationships, whether it's with the Fox Newses of the world or the New York Times. I think if Israel starts to feel like we are separating from them, I'm curious how they will respond. They will leak stories about the imminent threats of what if Israel were to say, guess what? We did not obliterate their nuclear stockpile in July. That was actually a failure, and it's still, hidden in these mountains. Well, then the Trump people now start to have a problem because Israel's two main goals are prevent nuclear weapons from hitting Israel. As Ashley said, it's a bigger threat to them than it is to us today, and change the regime, right? Clean up the neighborhood. They've gotten rid of, they've damaged Hamas, they've damaged Hezbollah. Like, they are cleaning out ever since October 7th, their entire neighborhood. And so I think the problem is when the Trump people try to say we've achieved victory as America sees it, if they start running counter programming through conservative channels, Ashley, I don't know what happens if Netanyahu goes on Hannity and says, I love Donald Trump, he's the greatest. But as President Trump knows, we have not, gotten rid of their nuclear materials. And the Ayatollah's son in our intelligence is worse than the Ayatollah, and he has plans to blow up Tel Aviv. Now you got conservative media that's going to sit there and, are they going to say, well, forget the Israelis, got to be America first? That's a tough message. I mean, yeah.
It hasn't happened yet, but go ahead. No.
I would just say, like, the conservatives are going to trust President Trump first and foremost. If President Trump says something, they're going to believe him before they believe Netanyahu, and the president will be very transparent on if he believes, anybody is lying. He has no problem calling people out for lying. So I think the president would be able to correct the record if he chose to do so. The other thing is, if you go back, we talked about this yesterday, the 2026, strategic defense plan that Secretary Hegseth put out. Our number one enemy is China. Right now, this is a thorn in our side, and the longer we engage in this, the less time we have to focus on China. I think at the end of the day, the administration wants to get back to focusing on our greatest enemy, which is China, and taking on those issues first. So that's kind of how I see this.
Can I ask you both a question? Trump is supposed to go to China in a few weeks.
Yeah.
You think the war is still going on when he goes? I don't think so.
Wait, when is the trip exactly? Do you know?
I think it's in 3 weeks. It's in April. I
Okay.
think it's the second week of April, I think. I can't imagine him there engaged in a hot war.
I feel like it's going to bleed into early April. I would be surprised if by mid-April we're still in this. What do you think, Ashley?
Okay.
I think that's right. And I think, again, this proves like this is through strength, not confrontation. I took care of this problem. I took care of Venezuela. Like, let's work this out now. So it's going to be interesting.
Let's move to the White House's midterm messaging plan here. So Republicans down at Doral, House Republicans, they have their retreat. White House staff were there yesterday, and one of the top headlines that came out was that James Blair, who's the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, sort of the political guru for the president in the administration, he told House Republicans to stop talking about mass deportation ahead of the midterms. I have to say, like, a lot of people seem kind of surprised by this, but like they've been saying this for weeks. There was reporting, I feel like at least a month ago, that the president's inner circle had encouraged him to also, stop talking about some of this stuff and to focus more on affordability issues. And the administration right now, they are seeing a little bit of blowback. Bannon yesterday was going on about this and how this is what people voted for. They should talk about mass deportations. And then there were other sort of folks on the right who were tweeting about this, saying, like, I did vote for mass deportations. What I didn't vote for was starting a war. Ashley, what is your advice to the administration on this? Do you think they should not be talking about mass deportations, or do you think like they've got to do this because it's, it revs up the base and it's something he ran on?
Well, I think James Blair posted yesterday on X kind of laying out, like, this is very clear. Do you want to go back to what the Democrat policies were of open borders and, really poor decisions? We've already had 2 million people that have self-deported. We've already, a lot is like 70% of the people that have been deported are criminal illegal aliens. You look at the statistics from the Department of Homeland Security on the people who are, child rapists, domestic abusers, murderers, and it's absolutely stunning. And so the real comparison here is like, do you want what we had 3 years ago, or do you want what we have today, which is safe communities, people living in peace, having a secure border, which is what people voted for, and the president has delivered on those promises. So James Blair, I think, has done an excellent job laying the case out on messaging, and I think sometimes it's good to hear it from, our great political strategist.
Yeah, his tweet. I read his tweet like he's seeing some of the blowback and was like, "Oh, like let me pivot to pummeling the Democrats here." But the message was the message, which is like, this isn't playing well. Let's focus on other areas. But one question for you too, before I go to Dan, if you could like change one thing about Republican sort of midterm messaging right now, what would you change, or what would you recommend?
I think right now I would like to talk more about prosperity instead of affordability. And this is just a personal choice. Because we are in, as the president said, this is our great American comeback story. And so I would love to be highlighting all of the wins on prosperity, whether it's the Texas oil refinery, whether it's healthcare prices, and highlight a lot of the stories. Representative Jason Smith yesterday talked about how there was a woman who had $10,000 on her tax return, and she was a waitress because of no tax on tips and some of her deductions. And the wins of the One Big Beautiful Bill are starting to come to fruition, and sharing those stories would be incredibly valuable to the party.
Dan, do Democrats want to see Republicans talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill more, would you say?
I actually think that was a great phrase, prosperity instead of affordability, to some extent. I think Democrats would love to just to litigate the big, beautiful bill to some extent, because it just is underwater. Now, it could be that when minds sharpen in the fall and people really think about this, that it may rise in popularity. I think Ashley teed up where Republicans are going to go, which is this contrast. And I've been saying this for a year, which is if you give Democrats power back, they're going to reopen the border, right? If you give Democrats power back, they will try to raise your taxes. And then I think the third one that Blair previewed, it was taxes, the border, and then crime, right? If blue cities have historically higher crime rates than red cities, so if you give it to them back, I think the challenge is just events have happened that are starting to overshadow the 2024 playbook. So when Ashley says, "Hey, look, it's all about the rapists and the murderers," I've always said this: if that's the conversation, Republicans win. If it's about the landscaper, the gardener, and your housekeeper, it's a losing strategy, because most Americans say, "Hey, not in my backyard." Those people are fine mowing the lawns, and not to overly simplify, but they're quiet working Americans in my neighborhood whose kids go to school with mine, who coach Little League. Like, go get the people in the other district, not mine. So I think it is fascinating, because it then creates this issue, which is the base voted for everybody, but the middle of the country that decides elections kind of didn't. They wanted the border shut and the bad hombres out. And after that, you start losing them. And that is the challenge for the White House. I'm
going to make a bet right now that this sort of contrast that they're drawing, it might not be as effective in the midterms, but like come 2028, it will be. I mean, like, I mentioned this a little yesterday, but like, there is a narrative like crystallizing around the Democratic Party, and this contrast the Republicans are drawing, it is significant. Like the moment at the State of the Union, when it comes to the DHS funding, like how are they going to posture or vote on, on the war and support, like funding troops? Like, I feel like, I know that Americans are very concerned about prices, right? That is going to be the driver. And there is concern about Iran sort of upstaging anything the administration has done. But like when it comes to some of those issues, it might not be top of mind for voters right now, but like it will be at some point. And I think by 2028, that is going to be a problem for them. Ashley, any thoughts on that? I think
though, the only thing I would say is, and Ashley, I'm curious if you agree with this, is the question is which party looks more extreme and chaotic. So if people say, "Hey, Iran was chaotic for a week or a month, but it ultimately ended up great," great. So you're going to have one party that says, in Minnesota, we killed Americans, we started a war in Iran, like this is out of control. The other side is going to say, no, the extreme is the DEI days and the Biden economy and
transgender surgeries for kids.
Right. So the question is, in 3 years, when we have another 3 years of our current, pace of world events right now, which party is more extreme? And that, I think, I can't tell you with any degree of clarity which party is going to win that or lose that. I don't know, Ashley, your thoughts.
Dan, your binary framing is exactly right. And that's what it's going to be. Like, if you are for this or if you are against this, and there has to be, a choice. And what's going to be very interesting is what are the bills that Congress will bring forward, that Speaker Johnson will bring forward in the fall. Look at, I think it's Delilah's Law, the commercial licenses. You look at the commercial licenses to illegal aliens who maybe they were good people, maybe they were coaching, but they had driver's licenses, they were illegal aliens, and they killed a family, right, in Indiana or Florida. So, this messaging, the binary choice is going to be very, very clear the closer we get to November in terms of what the American people want.
Yep. I agree with that.
One last thing on this, Dan, you flagged a story that Democratic senators are going to be hatching this plan to end income taxes for millions of Americans. What are you hearing about that, and how prevalent is that going to be on the trail?
Well, look, I think this goes to the fact that we don't know in the future what, like Ashley just said, in the fall, what are we talking about? Like, I seriously don't know. And so I think why this is important is, so Cory Booker, Chris Van Hollen, both working on bills that would raise the standard deduction from, I think it's like $35,000 to $75,000 per person. So a couple would be, $150,000. Democrats know they have to come up with ideas. So when we talk about affordability, it's a great buzzword, but like, what the heck does that mean? What exactly would you do for me if you win power back? Again, in 2006, Rahm Emanuel, 6 for 06. If you elect us, these are the 6 things we'll do. Democrats are working through this. Half the party says, no, do not cut taxes even for working class people, because we need that money to pay for childcare and whatever. And the other side is saying, no, we need to enter this conversation about tax cuts. They're not all bad. And Ashley's side is going to say, see, if you give Democrats back, half their party wants to raise taxes on you. And so keep us in power. The idea generation is starting. We talked about Rahm Emanuel, and now you have kind of progressive members in Congress who are beginning to say, what would we do if we got power back? And when was the last time you heard Democrats talking about large-scale tax cuts?
But it's disingenuous at best. And so, if they wanted lower taxes, they would have supported the working family tax cuts. They would have supported no tax on tips. And a lot of those same senators voted to continue to tax tips. And so I think what would happen, I spoke to a couple of our economists at AFPI this morning, and they had said that if they were to move forward, they would have to place additional taxes on working people to make up for that lost revenue of the income tax. So, it sounds nice, but it's not true, and it's not supported by anything like logical. So,
what is the pay for, Dan, on that? I'm sorry. What is the pay for on it? We don't know about what a pay for.
No, they don't. That is Ashley's. One side is going to say, look, if one way to pay for it is to raise taxes, right? Yeah. The other side is you have to cut programs. So this is the classic, what do you do? And that's where you have the kind of Bernie Sanders wing and some of the progressives around Elizabeth Warren, who in the story about Booker and Van Hollen are saying, no. We need more revenue, not cuts to revenue. So Democratic Party is going to have a lot of fights.
Yeah. Let's go to Ohio and Kentucky. So the president has his 5th stop on this affordability tour. But as I mentioned at the top, this won't just be about pricing, right? This is also part of a revenge tour. He's going to be stopping in Boone County, Kentucky. This is Massie country, as we said, although it's also Trump country. So fair enough right there. So this is actually, I understand that the president needs to sort of show some muscle against people who defy him, right? People can just defy you left and right and ignore you, then you don't have any power, right? And clearly people on the inside, the inner circle, decided that Massie, they were going to make an example of Massie. If you come out against us as a Republican, we're going to come for you. But I also wonder, is there a risk of, they've already alienated this guy. He has been such a pain to the president and the House, whether it comes to the Epstein stuff, when it comes to war powers resolutions. Do you think there's any regret about maybe trying a little sugar instead of using, the hammer against him to try to keep him more friendly? Or was Massie always going to Massie? if that
He
makes sense.
has alienated himself. He made this. He alienated himself. That is very. He has made this decision. He spends more time with a Bay Area Democrat in California than he does with the people of Kentucky, and he sides with them more than he sides with his people. Now, I will, like, full disclosure, America First Works has endorsed Massie's opponent. We have boots on the ground that are canvassing, and what we're hearing from people at the door is that they're tired of it. This is not what they want. This does not represent their values. So, I mean, I think this is very damaging to Massie. Another thing that just what a complete hypocrite he is. He was only one of 2 members to vote against the Take It Down Act. And that was Mrs. Trump's explicit content online, the AI generated content. He voted against that. So for somebody who claims to be so supportive of women and victims, he voted against one bill that only 2 people voted against in the House. That I just think he's so out of touch with his state. It's time for him to go.
I did not realize that AFPI was on the ground there. That's really fascinating. So what is your prediction here? Like, do you think that, like, if they're able to dislodge him, that's a big deal, right? Like that, I mean, it is an area that supports the president, but it's also an area that there's a lot of libertarian minded Republicans who maybe they like what he's doing. Maybe they don't. It sounds like you guys are hearing mostly that they don't. Where do you think this ends up going in the primary?
Well, I have my thoughts of where I would very much like it to go and where we're invested in it going. I would like for Thomas Massie to lose his seat and maybe he can go get a job on MS Now. That would be great. That's fine. He seems to enjoy that type of press and coverage regardless.
What chance would you say that he has of losing?
I think he has a pretty significant chance based on everything we're seeing right now. And the fact that he's postured and he's so defensive. Yesterday, he was very much freaking out on X about the president showing up in his district. I don't think he was expecting that.
Well,
so
he was saying that this opponent of his, actually left the Republican Party because of Trump. Like he was on a.
They're trying to make it sound like he was a never Trumper, but our vice president also at one point didn't love the president either, and it was 10 years ago. So
fair enough. That's true.
You know, I think we can all move forward and identify what's best for America now, and he has a proven track record, and things are very different in 2026 than they were in 2016.
Meanwhile, the president's also going to be in Ohio. There was a stat in Playbook this morning that Cincinnati area gas was $2.64 a gallon at this time last year. A week ago, it was $2.97, and today it's $3.43. Obviously, that's a challenge for the president when he's visiting Ohio, and when the state is so important, Dan, as you were saying, like when it comes to the Senate race there.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think this is the problem with gas prices. They're everywhere. So it used to be Trump would come in here in the last couple of weeks with these affordability tours, and he would say, price of eggs are down, price of gasoline is down, kind of, look, the media doesn't treat me well. All you're seeing are negative headlines. The problem with, and there's a reason he would always say gas prices. Almost every American goes and fills up a tank. So it registers with them. And I think the problem is this registers with them, that prices are rising. And so if you're Sherrod Brown, this is the easiest layup that you're going to get is, hey, he's talking about, prescription drug prices, but healthcare, health insurance has gone up and the price of gas has gone up. And so it's just a headache. And I think at the end of today, I think he's in the Cincinnati area. Right. I would bet that the Cincinnati Enquirer has a little bit about Trump RX, but there's going to be a lot about the war in Iran and what he says about Massie. And just, this is, I think, likely another day where the message just gets drowned out because the circuit board can only take so many pieces of data coming in every day.
I did the 8-hour drive back to Ohio just a couple of weeks ago, and I swear, like gas, it was often like $1.99. It was incredible. Hopefully, we get back to that pretty soon.
Well,
let's move to
because Rachel, I'm curious your take. Cincinnati was up until maybe recently like Bush Country Club Republican area, Rob Portman, like it, kind of a pro-business, not the kind of southeast part of Ohio that's more Christian conservative. And I think that is the heart of Trump country, Appalachia and the kind of working class, old steel mill, coal mill towns.
Yeah.
Do you think part of this is like they are going in there because that is a group they have a problem with right now? Those kind of like those lighter leaning Republicans. I don't know, Ashley, if you would disagree, but that crowd is the one that's kind of getting a little. It's always been a little soft.
I don't think so. Look, I have a lot of family in Ohio. They're all Republicans, and they love the president. And I would say they're more sort of like Bush type Republicans too. Like I wouldn't call them, hardcore MAGA all the way, but like they like what he's doing. But like I think with Sherrod Brown, like he is one of those few Democrats who can actually appeal to some of these voters who, again, are blue collar. Maybe they traditionally would vote Republican, but would vote for him because they like what he's done on unions and the more sort of populist appeal that he has. So like I do think Republicans need to watch out Ohio, but like Ohio to me it doesn't feel purple anymore. It feels red. I agree. When I drive through it, I see Trump signs everywhere. So it's hard for me to think that Democrats will take it back. But anyway, Ashley, did you have any thoughts?
Just one more thing. Yeah. There's a couple Trump won congressional districts that we can go on offense on for the midterms as well. So I think that there's a lot to do in Ohio still that we have a big advantage. And the other thing is the president never gets the credit for his healthcare policy the way that he should with the prescription drugs and Trump RX or even the fertility treatments that he rolled out earlier, I guess late last year. So that's going to be, I think, very telling in what kind of pops with that in his trips.
Yeah. Rachel, a lot of the Obama people from 2012 would tell you Ohio is more Missouri than Pennsylvania. That it is drifting. It has drifted away from the Democratic Party. Yeah, for now.
For sure. It's felt red to me for a long time, and it's really hard for me to see that changing. Let's very quickly do Thune and Cornyn feeling the heat because the majority leader in the Senate announced yesterday that he's going to be bringing the Save America Act up for a vote next week, but he's not going to be changing the rules. They're not talking about the talking filibuster. This is going to be voted down. It will not get 60 votes to proceed. So there's this pressure campaign. We talked about it yesterday. I mean, Elon Musk was tweeting all day yesterday about Thune. Mark Meadows was tweeting the names of senators who have not basically endorsed this idea of going nuclear to get this through. And Thune has been hitting back saying that this is a conservative influencer campaign, saying that he's got a hard job right now. Obviously, Ashley, you would disagree. I think Sean would also disagree that this is just a conservative influencer obsession. But Ashley, I want you to can you just assess what do you think about Thune's leadership, not just on this issue, but do you think he's been good for President Trump? Like, how would you assess him as a leader?
I think he has an incredibly challenging job. However, he does have an obligation to get this through. That's his job. He's the Senate leader. I will say he has a challenge with the parliamentarian, and that doesn't get enough, I think, spotlight in terms of what she has allowed. I look back at, the reconciliation bill, the One Big Beautiful Bill last year, and some of the things that were allowed or not allowed. That's been troubling for him. I think he tries to do what's right, but he has an obligation to bring this forward, and he has an obligation to put people on the record. And that's what I think needs to happen. I think that's what I think that's what conservatives want to see. I'd say Republicans and Democrats. This is a nonpartisan, is it 86% issue or something ridiculous? So to put people on record, he needs to bring this forward.
Do you think that when this is brought up, and yes, Democrats will be on record on it, so will the Republicans, when it goes down, do you think the party sort of moves on, or will this pressure campaign just keep going?
No, it'll keep going. I think it'll 100% keep going.
Dan, it's interesting because we've talked a lot about Schumer being under pressure from the base, and he's gotten criticism for often catering to the base. Thune right now also under pressure from the base. It is not easy to be a leader and have to tell your base no. And I know, Ashley, you're saying he shouldn't tell the base no. But Mitch McConnell, he sort of embraced this role. The GOP base hated him, and he was not afraid of it. I don't know. Thoughts on this, Dan? I mean, Thune is pushing back on his own base. Schumer doesn't do that so much.
But we talk about McConnell. There's a reason he's retiring. One, he's getting older, but two, he got basically run out of the party. And I think the problem for Thune is, and maybe it's also a saving grace, he was not the choice of the base to be leader. It was Rick Scott. There were kind of alternatives, and the White House never formally said who they wanted, but it was believed that they did not love, they looked for an alternative other than Thune, because Thune is an institutionalist. At his core, he is closer to McConnell from a process and leader standpoint than he is to, Mike Lee. And so I think the challenge is let's say that, I mean, we can game out that the SAVE Act likely will never become law in this Congress. Let's say Democrats don't win the majority back, but they pick up 2 or 3 seats net. The question is, look to blame somebody. And Trump in 2018, his thing was candidates got soft on Trump, right? You should have stuck by me and then my voters would have turned out.
Right.
Does the party turn on Thune, who does not have a deep reservoir of support except for the institutionalists in the Dirksen and Hart Senate office building? And those people are going to probably look around and say to themselves, we are not representative of this party anymore. And that, I think, is the interesting question: is does Thune say my numbers are my days are numbered and I'm going to just hold the line and let history be the judge? Or does he say, if I want to survive much longer, I need to get right with the base and blow up the filibuster?
I mean, it's difficult for him because, like, he has done so much to try to repair his relationship with the president. I mean, he supported Senator Scott when he ran in the primary. He was not a big Trumper. He criticized the president after January 6th, but he has done a lot since then to try to ingratiate himself with the president, to sort of follow his lead when it comes to legislation and what the president wants done on the Hill. But this sort of, again, it's going to erode a lot of that goodwill that he built up, because the president has said this is the thing he wants most this year. In terms of, like, just one other thought on this. I mean, I do think this is like the first big break with the base. It's not going to be the last one. But even if the party starts to turn on him, the people who elect the leaders are the senators themselves, and they vote by secret ballot. And that's why his job is always, it's going to be safe for at least a long while, I would say. I mean, a lot of senators, even senators who want this to pass, give him a little grace on this, realizing that the filibuster issue is very prickly. So I don't
think, Rachel, the secret ballot is a choice of what if a movement started on the right, which it did last time, and it got quelched? No more secret ballots. The base demands.
That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. Guaranteed. There's no way in HE double hockey sticks that the Senate ever decides to open up their ballot for leadership.
So
races.
if the Trump megaphone and Elon and everyone after the elections turns on this, on the secret ballot.
Oh yeah, no, I still don't think so. Like, senators, they jealously guard their prerogatives on this kind of stuff. Like, this is, I think a lot of them come out and say how they vote. I just don't see that changing. I really don't.
Okay.
Because guess what? They'd have to vote by secret ballot to do that, probably, to change those rules. I don't know.
I would say, all I'll say is, like, number one, there's a lot of states that don't have the safeguards necessary from preventing illegal aliens voting in their elections to stop that. And so this is something that conservatives and liberals, everybody very overwhelmingly wants this. This is a top legislative priority for the president. The Senate needs to act like it and carry it forward as such. And the other thing is, you say he could be leader for a very long time, but, like, okay, let's think about this for a second. You have Cassidy, who's being primaried by Julia Letlow in Louisiana, and more of the establishment type. We have the Cornyn Paxton, Senate fight in Texas, and so Cornyn's going to have to move more to the right if he's going to want to, maintain any sort of support. So this may not go on as long as we think, given the changing dynamics that we're seeing and how much more. I think the American people, they had a Trump presidency. They saw the amazing success of the first Trump presidency. They lost that. They saw the disaster of the following 4 years. And now the American people are empowered like never before to make sure that we support the president's agenda, and put the American people first, and those 80% issues, his legislative priorities first. So
I think if you read between the lines, what Ashley said is they have boots on the ground in South Dakota, and they're going to primary John Thune.
I was going to say, when is John Thune up again? The America First policy is you don't want them coming up against you.
If the leader is watching, or his staff, yes,
here it comes. Begins the primary campaign. And by the way, one last thing on this: there is a tipping point. John Boehner became such a problem for the Republican Party that he had to leave. He saw it, that his candidates were being asked, do you support? It was the number one question: do you support the leader or not? And when you become a liability to your own members, that's a big problem. I don't think John Boehner is there yet. Yeah,
that's in primaries for Democrats. Will you support Chuck Schumer? And most of them, their answer is, I haven't made up my mind yet, which is an answer.
Let's take a couple questions. Let's take a couple questions here. Okay, hi Kim. Good morning. Will the tornado emergencies in Illinois and Indiana yesterday and the TSA problems over the weekend change any minds regarding the shutdown? Will Democrats vote for DHS funding soon? They should.
I would love to be a fly on the wall, in the Democratic caucus as these TSA airline lines are getting longer. It's just like gas prices. That is real lives of real people who will call their member and say, WTF, I don't care what you're fighting over. I'm not dealing with 4-hour advisory times at the airport. Like, get it done.
Yeah, I think that they absolutely should. Like literally, like we are at war with Iran. Like our homeland needs to be protected. There are serious threats right now, and the DHS is shut. Do I think it will change anything? No. I mean, like the Democratic Party right now is so far left that like they're not thinking rationally. I shouldn't laugh. It's not good. Ashley, any thoughts before we move?
No, I agree. They've got to fund DHS. They're not asking for additional funding for anything crazy. Like they're wanting to just keep it as is. So just do it. This isn't hard.
I think the other problem for the Democratic Party is this is where polls can become misleading. Yes, the public is with us on immigration and against the war in Iran. They're with you till they're not. And then when they're not, your leverage drops like a stone in a pond. And so the problem is what we're saying here, a tornado, TSA lines, all of a sudden those numbers could be like, yeah, I'm with you on immigration, but I don't, it's not my priority compared to repairing my district or travel and, flying on the airlines. And I think this is where the MS Now crowd just says, look at the polls until they're not.
Yeah. It's really short-sighted. Let's take another question. Okay. Bixby, hello. Question. How do you say that? Yamaha USA?
Yamaha.
Oh, Yamaha USA just announced that they were leaving California for Georgia. How big of a problem will these companies continuing to leave for Newsom? How big of a problem will they be? We talked about this yesterday a little bit.
Yeah, huge. I mean, look, and I know Newsom will say net, there's 300,000, I think it was, new businesses created in our state. It's like in Illinois when I think it was Citadel Securities moved to Miami, and then I forget who the other big Fortune 500, and I know Citadel's not Fortune 500, but they pay a lot of taxes, moved out of Illinois. Every time you hear these, Mark Zuckerberg is leaving, the Google founders are leaving. Like, okay, you can say good riddance to the billionaires. Do you know how much tax revenue the state is losing with those people leaving? So it's a huge problem for Gavin. It's huge.
Yeah. Thoughts, Ashley? We'll take another question.
I think that's exactly right. And it adds, that's why he has to do his $19 million investment into telling everyone about the misinformation in California, because it's getting dire.
He's going to be needing a lot more taxpayer money to make that case. Okay, let's take another question. Okay, good morning, Bumps. Question, does Trump's nomination truly carry the weight they say it does? I think of Carrie Lake and her inability to secure elected office as one of Trump's MAGA candidates. It certainly does in the primary, right?
Yeah, totally.
The primary is where the juice is. General election is a little different.
Can't win the general if you don't win the primary. I mean, that's your issue. He's still the 800-pound gorilla. I mean, I think actually probably, other than Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, I don't know of any main figure that has taken him on and won.
Yeah.
Nobody.
It's totally true. I'm trying to think. I can't think of one either.
And that's Alaska. It's a funky state.
Can I just ask a quick question, you guys? I mean, he still has 3 more years of his presidency, but after he is not president anymore, will he still be like this, the 800-pound gorilla that everybody seeks his endorsement? Ashley, how long will that stay around?
I 100%, I think he will be. There's no doubt. My kids actually asked me, what do you think the president will do afterwards? I'm like, I don't see him ever stop working. I don't see him ever slowing down. It's just not his nature.
Yeah.
I think it's a great question because I could see it both ways, which is if J.D. Vance is president, he's still very active. And if a Democrat's, he's going to defend his legacy. I think he will have the most unique post-presidency of any in the history of the country.
Yeah, I can see it now, like him tweeting from Mar-a-Lago when JD's president.
100%.
We're going to be covering it just as much.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we are at time. Thank you for your patience today. I was very disorganized. I'll just be honest. So thank you for your patience. And again, thanks Ashley for joining us. It's really great to have you here. We will be back tomorrow at 8:30. We'll see you then.